Boom! Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out. And boom, what's going on, guys? Byron Rodgers here once again with my co-host Luke Agajanian.
What's up?
We're going to talk a little bit about something that we do, which is church security. And it's an honor to do so. Mm-hmm. So, one of the venues that I work at is a large church out here. Actually, Luke, I'll let you break it out.
So, both of our current positions is at a large multi-campus church with actually a very large crusade ministry as well. We have 6 campuses from New York to Hawaii, and our main campus is here. We have 2 primary campuses here in the California area, and one of those campuses, kind of our main campus. We also have it's K through 6 school as well, and just on that campus over 600, I think we're at like 650 now, employees that work on the campus as well. That's not including school employees, so that's not including the teachers and whatnot. So it's quite a large campus, a lot of people, big footprint in a not so safe neighborhood, and I guess we can get into that when we get closer to talking about how we set up security at that church.
Yeah. One of the reasons, obviously, with the changes that have been taking place in American culture, church security seems to be kind of a new frontier. There are a lot of, I'm getting contacted on at least every month, and for a while there was on a weekly basis, about church security just because of things that we're seeing in the news. But I think there's the reality of keeping a church safe it's got so much more to do with just your lone wolves and terrorist operations, although those things they are considerations. I think something that I think is appropriate to outline is that when it comes to think of a church, you're talking about a body of human beings, or your place of worship, you're talking about a body of human beings. What I've seen to be kind of the number one, I guess we'll use the word threat or security consideration, is really dealing with kind of what the churches do, which is attract people that need help and counsel people that need help. Mm-hmm. And that is where I'm experiencing the most activity and friction with regards to keeping this place safe. So that was something, and then beyond that, you still have, your terrorist activity and all that stuff that still does actually take place and does actually happen. There's so much for us to say on this topic.
It's ridiculous. You put it. Maybe you can repeat it, but you said something to the effect to somebody recently, another professional colleague, where you were like, "Hey man, this job has a wider array of security concerns than anything else you've ever worked."
Yeah,
it was something to that nature.
Yeah, I was like, I remember saying I've been around the world, I've done executive protection, and I've done a number of things in a number of different venues, but nothing has required more consistently from me than working church security or working within the realm of faith-based organizations. It's just the nature of this business is sticky. Even if you think about what we're doing in Iraq, those types of enemies are legitimate enemies, or they're the religious extremists and things like that. But the thing is, I mean, with a church, there's so many different types of threats that you're looking for and that you're trying to deal with, whilst keeping the church's mission before your mission. Because if you mess up the church's mission, you're not, if you come in there and you're ultra security heavy, and you're not able to do your security in a way that works into the mission of the religious or the church organization you're working for, you're going to get axed. They're going to need someone else to do your job, because that mission's going to come first. So these are just a few considerations, just kind of getting started. And that's probably the biggest distinguishing factor between normal security and working for a place of faith, is that you can't just do security. You're not just going to bounce somebody. You're not just going to deal with the threat alone all the time. It's that you have to have one hand to heal and one hand to do the harder parts of our job at the same time, all the time. You've got to be extra diplomatic. Even getting a good security program implemented it's a feat in and of itself. And we have a method here that me and Luke have seen work, that we'll share with you guys, that I think can help a lot of men and women out there that are trying to provide high quality security for their churches and might be running into some kind of red tape and some politics and things like that.
Yeah. What I really want to just share with you guys is sort of my history, how I got here, how I got this job. I've been at this job now 5 years. Financially, it is a fantastic job. I'm extremely happy living it. I live well in the Southern California area. It's great. It's a great career. It's very consistent. This is where I plan on spending the rest of my career, for me. And it's a good, consistent place of business, and I'm very happy doing it. And it's just good work, I can't imagine doing something else right now for me and where I'm at in my life. But I just wanted to go into kind of the history of how I got this job, because I think you guys could learn a lot from that. And then I want to go into the different protocols, the security measures that we have here at this church I don't want to get too in depth on that.
Yeah.
But I do want to share some of them, because some of those large measures that if you come to our church that any bad guy would see, some of those measures took a lot of work to make happen. And I know there's somebody out there. I mean, I get phone calls on a weekly basis from other guys at church, whether they're staff members, some of them are pastors, some of them are maybe like, hey, I just got hired to do security at this church. And this is kind of the stories I share with them. These are the things I talk to them about. And sort of what I'm planning on doing is kind of what happened with our other podcast, how to get started in executive protection. I want to be able to turn people to this, so they can have this and they can take in all this information and learn, learn from it, And maybe we'll do a part 2 someday, like where we get a little more in detail, especially when it comes to protocols, SOPs, equipment. Is kind of an important one, at least for us here in California. It's obviously a bit different because the laws dictate such. But there's we provide a very high level of security, in a lot of people's opinion, people I've come in contact with within the FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service, as well as other private security entities that have come and visited our church. They look at our church as like a staple for the most that can be done.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're going to be able to go and implement everything we did in our church, but you can get pretty close for not a lot of money. Yeah. And I think where a lot of churches fail, in my opinion, is the idea of thinking that they need to throw money at every problem. Yeah. And that's something I see. I see churches from directors that I have good relationships with locally here, and I respect them, and I think they have good teams. I just maybe don't agree with the way they're doing things, and I definitely don't agree with the amount of finances that their church might be pouring into those measures and their program. So I think we've done a good job here at managing our budget and doing a lot with a little. So I'll touch on that a little bit. A lot of the things that we do here are there, it's a visual deterrence. Yeah. And that's extremely important, and that's something that I personally feel a large majority of the churches are missing. They are missing that visual deterrence.
That right there is where you run into your first friction point in implementing church security, which is the visual deterrence, just deterrence in general that comes from having exposed weapons or an obvious overt security presence. Like, this is where the congregation starts to notice, and they start being like, well, what is something wrong? And when it's genuine concerns, is something wrong, what's going on? And now you have to manage perception and opinion, and the politics get involved. So this is like kind of your first sticking point, you know, because it's all, it reads well, it's good on paper, and then you put it out there, and then you're going to get resistance from the congregation naturally. And
Yeah.
how did we
Well, I'll
deal with
say,
that? Because it went well.
kind of going back to the Secret Service, and I understand that we are not the Secret Service. We don't have a badge, and we can't walk up to any law enforcement officer anywhere in the country and say, you're doing this. That doesn't work. We don't get to do that. And, you know, especially in executive protection, I know for a fact, I've worked with some Secret Service guys that are absolutely unbelievable human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
You know, you're not working there unless you are.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've had a lot of them have a hard time adjusting to the social skills that are in place with asking people to help them.
The private side of executive protection.
Yeah, like they're used to walking in the hotel room and being like,
Give me these.
give me this, and this. We have to like basically wine and dine a front desk girl or guy. Like,
That front desk girl
hey
or guy,
buddy,
yeah,
it's like,
is your
can
client.
you help me?
They are your client for that 5 or 10 minutes
Oh, absolutely.
to get what you want to get. Like, bring
absolutely.
them something. Bring them some chocolates from up the street. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I, the first thing I started doing was, I would say one of the first things was I needed to make my team larger. I needed more volunteers, and we are very much a volunteer-based
Awesome.
church in general.
Yeah.
We have a massive volunteer, like a core group of volunteers
Yeah.
throughout the church. I want to say that just our ushering staff is in the 400s. You know, it's insane. Our security staff now at this time is currently just right under 300.
Woohoo.
And that's amazing. Managing them is, well, we'll get to that later. But so I just started opening it up, and I started going to like our men's ministry. I went to our women's ministry.
Yeah.
Because some of the best, you know, individuals we have here are females.
Yep. And that's one of the best things about having a multi-layered approach. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll get into this in a bit.
I'm gonna have you kind of dive into that because that's what I brought you in for originally. So I just started trying to get people, and we have a whole process that we go through here when bringing on volunteers.
Yeah.
I'll just give it to you guys, and maybe you can utilize this. But one, we have a start to follow class, which is kind of a basics, you know, on our core principles at the church.
At the church, right.
You have to have been going there for 6 months, and then we have a ministry questionnaire that you have to fill out, and it's basic kind of
What you should know about.
doctrine that you should understand and
Yeah.
know. And then there's also a place in there for you to put pastors you have relationships with, and then other members in the church, like references. And I actually,
And you have
people
to
are
get reference letter. Like, people need to send in references.
Yeah, they have to
send 3 reference letters in.
yeah, and sometimes I would even call those pastors and those guys. Like I really did my background on these people because of the job that I knew they were going to be doing.
I'll pull them aside all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Yo, what's up with Joe?
And right off the bat, we bumped that up to about 40 guys and girls, you know, really quick. Out of those 40, I'd say maybe like 15 of those were diehards. I'm just talking about one campus. I had to do this at a whole bunch of campuses, but I'm talking about our main campus right now. And
Main campus.
that gave me a lot of, okay, well, now where do I put them?
Right.
You know, and then started going through that. One of my big things, we had a guest speaker out here, a very well-known guest speaker. Before I was hired, he was here, and a drunk dude walked up on the stage and just started yelling at him, stood right next to him. Now here's what's hilarious. That guy had the secret squirrel little ninja security dude with him, who was sitting backstage being a secret squirrel staring at his cell phone. Missed the person walking on stage, and I don't think he got fired over that, but it was definitely one of those like, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah,
it
whatever
doesn't
you're doing doesn't work.
So the very first thing that we implemented was spots inside. of the sanctuary, and 2 of those spots are very visible spots, and we literally have a stage right and a stage left guards. Like they sit there, and they're kind of tucked back. It's not like they're in front of everybody. It's fairly discreet where they're at.
But they're in front of the stairs.
But they're there, and they're in front of the stairs, and they're facing outward, which what we learned from our previous job is really almost the most important position.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones communicating everything that they're seeing.
And they're looking out over the entire congregation, and they can see anything coming.
Yeah.
So their communication is like key. They're like the eyes, kind of our eyes in there.
Yeah, and the key, and you're going to find this being kind of a recurring thing here, but the key to implementing that and making it happen was our senior pastor.
Yep.
Our senior pastor was like, the first time we did it, he got up there, he started joking at him. Then he shows the video. He's like, I just don't want this to happen to me, so this is what's happening now. And he like said hi to him, and he walked down, he like interviews him, and makes it kind of a joking, laughing matter.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, they're here for your safety. And he is extremely pro-security. Not because he's scared, but because he feels, and pastors out there listening to this, it is your responsibility to protect your flock, to protect your congregation. And he takes it very serious upon himself. He doesn't just look at a failure as not only my failure, but his as well.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of responsibility on me.
Yeah.
But if I come to him with something, kind of going back to my boy Jocko, what's some of the most important things in leadership? Not just to educate the people underneath you, but to educate the people above you.
Yep.
And I had to set myself up structure-wise here where I didn't have all these layers to go through.
Yeah.
And I have that direct access with the senior pastor as well as our senior associate pastor. And that's pretty much the tiered structure. Like, those are the 2 guys I have to deal with. And then I'm really close with our CFO because he's just been a huge help for me managing kind of through, all the kind of the social structure at the church.
Yeah.
Like, he's been a big help to me. And he's a CFO. There's accountants. This.
Yeah, you have to be friends.
You got to
with
be
the
friends
accountants.
with them. You got to be friends.
They'll
with
be
them.
the reason you don't exist if you're not friends with.
I'm sitting there like with a budget for the first time. I'm like,
what am I gonna do? Staring at a spreadsheet.
I'm just looking at him, and he's like, yeah, stand by. He's got like 9 screens up, and he just brings my whole budget up. God bless you. God bless you, bro. You know who you are if you're watching this.
Yeah,
probably
right.
not.
But I know. But with that, with that kind of what you were saying, I think one of the things that gave us the buy-in that we have now and the appreciation and the disarm to the congregation was the fact that, and this is a hack, and I know different congregations have different stances, and it may be more or less complicated to get your pastoral staff to back you in this way, because they may not want to touch it, but if you can get them to back you from the pulpit, it will cause the congregation to buy in much more quickly. Because later on, as I've been here, he's gone up and he said, hey, you see these guys out there? They've got weapons. They're standing out there. They are your security. They're here so that you can be safe while you're in here. And he said, he's like, I take responsibility for keeping my flock safe. And he told them exactly why we were there. And after that Sunday, people are coming up to me on a regular basis. One of the times I just thought about just running my GoPro in between services and making a highlight reel of people that are like, thanks for doing what you're doing. We really appreciate you being here.
And it was not that way when I started, man. It was not. And it's really, like, at least in your position, you're coming in on the backs of some giants, some guys that I hired, these 2 guys with the same name. One of them was in charge of my school, and the other one was in charge of my volunteers and services and the service security. And man, at the school, at least in our area, I used to have a homeless problem.
Yeah.
And then I hired the most motivated moto dude.
Motivated security dude. He got work done.
He just looked for problems. And at least with my campus, if you're bored working at my campus,
you're wrong.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
Because we're really busy. There's always something to find. There's always
to get into.
Something crazy going on. It's cool now. Like, we have homeless that come to our church. They're members of our church.
Yeah.
And they come up and they talk to us. I mean, you got some you're like friends with some of them. You're giving them hugs and stuff.
Right.
You guys are on a first
man.
name basis.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like, I remember talking to this girl, and she was like, oh, you guys are just the best security ever. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're known in the area amongst the homeless community for, like, you can't slip up in this place.
Yeah.
We go to the other church if we want to slip up. And
Yeah.
that sounds horrible, but literally everything I'm doing is I want the bad guy or the person who wishes to do harm to, whether it be our church or, you know, on our piece of property or just a church in general, I want them to look at us and go, no, I'm not going to get away with whatever I want to get away with here.
Right.
And that goes all the way from, you know, the random drunk guy to the legit terrorist threat.
Yeah.
You
Or
know?
to the husband who's in counseling that's getting up in arms because pastor such and such is telling him he can't, like, you know, do something to his wife that's like, you know, like tight, you know, be physical or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He knows that there's a man outside that's ready to bring accountability and ensure order at that facility that he's gonna have to face if he goes on ahead and scribbles outside the lines. And just organic to having men like that on your campus, it just brings a higher sense of order.
Absolutely.
It does.
Absolutely. So moving forward, and this is where those things that he just spoke of really started to hit home. Was I'll talk about two primary security, protocols that we put into place that got where we really got a lot of flack. We got a lot of backlash from
Static.
not just from the congregation, but as well from the staff who just didn't agree with it and thought it was ridiculous. And two of those things were uniformed armed presence and bag checks.
Bag checks.
Now, I kept saying to them, like, and this is, with both of these things, you just have to stick to your guns because eventually you will train the flock.
You will train
and
them.
they will expect it.
Yeah.
And then they'll feel
And then they'll get
comfortable
mad
with
at
it.
you, yeah.
And then when you don't do it,
Then
they're
they're
like,
mad at you. Like, what's going on?
nobody's here.
No,
Where-
we don't feel safe anymore.
Why are you in normal people
Wait,
clothes?
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
one I get all the
Yeah.
time when I'm like, when I'm
Not
not in my
geared
kit
up,
or in my
yeah.
gear. Guys are like, why do you have?
Where's your stuff?
Where's your stuff? Are you not working tonight?
Yeah, exactly. Who's working?
Like, and
And you're like,
I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even just go to church anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what's going on? Again, pro tip: no matter what, guys and girls, setting up your teams, make it mandatory that once a week they have to attend a service.
yeah.
That is a must, and you have to attend a service.
Yeah.
You need to continue being fed, and both Byron and myself always make it a point to sit in with our better halves for that one service, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's midweek for me. Sometimes it's, that third service we like to sit in, but
Yeah.
and you can change it up, but sit in. You have to.
Well, and for the sake of your volunteer staff, your attrition rate will go up if they're not able to sit in, because the reason they're there is church in the first place. And if that reason starts to shift around and be taken away, then your attrition rate starts going up. So you've got to make sure they're still getting what it is that anchors them to that relationship from a social dynamic perspective.
And luckily for us, we have like literally 15 spots inside to fill. So
Yeah.
we never have a problem filling
Yeah.
or finding a place for guys to sit. But it was those two things, and with both of them, like the uniform presence was much easier because first off, it took us some time to get our licenses and get everybody licensed up, build an SOP, talk to our insurance companies, talk to our HR, and because we knew we wanted to do it. We wanted to go to a uniformed armed presence, so it was already in the pipeline. It's not like this thing happened and then the next day we did this.
Yeah.
But I remember I was in New York with the boss, and when the Paris attacks happened, and that right there was like,
Proof.
okay, yeah, we're gonna do this now.
Yeah,
We're
this
totally
is-
gonna do this. I'm like,
this is a
we're
real
actually
thing.
already set up for it,
Yeah.
And where the backlash was coming was from other pastors.
Yeah.
And my pastor, the senior pastor, was always on board with it. But you don't just work with him, you work with all these other staff members too. And so we just had to get things in place, and luckily we had those things in place. But that was probably a much easier transition for us. And so when it happened, again, that Sunday morning,
the senior executive pastor went up and he addressed it, not just for like 30 seconds, like he took a few minutes and addressed
The issue.
and addressed this is what's going to happen, this is what it's going to look like, and this is why we're doing it.
That's the big
And that just, you're just
It's
already
gold.
set up for success. So
Yeah.
even other staff members who might not agree with the procedures you're putting in place, they're behind it.
Yeah.
They're going, well,
I guess
okay,
this is what we're doing
this
now.
is what we're doing
Yeah.
now. It's the way it is.
Absolutely.
And that made life so much
100 times easier. And then if you're out there by yourself and you still have to win over everyone, there's a lot in the Bible about watchmen, and about security, and so much that God did in the earth by using strong men with weapons. So, David's a man after God's own heart. He's also, it's said that Saul killed his 1,000, David killed his tens of thousands, So the whole notion that, because you're a place of worship that you have to be passive and all these other things isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily biblical. There's a lot that just validates the heck out of having security, actually. Just Google watchmen in the Bible, and it talks about men being on the walls, men watching for danger coming, and the responsibilities that come with being a watchman, or an armor bearer. Do your research, you'll find it.
Yeah. So the other one was bag checks. And
No one likes bag checks
we
at first.
it was one of those things where we started them, it went over, as the term goes, like a fart in church.
Yeah, right.
People were not happy with it. Now, having said that, it came, kind of, the order came down from those two pastors.
Yeah.
But there was another exec or admin pastor that really kind of started shedding his wisdom. He's like, let me help you with this. And what we did was, those bag searches are not done by security.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way he took it. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. I don't have to lose 5 guys to searching bags.
Right.
And, again, kind of going back to Homeland Security, tapping into that resource. I think the video is open source. You can probably find it on YouTube, but it's like how to search bags. And they made it for all the stadiums, for the NFL, MLB
For
stadiums
training
and
high
whatnot,
volumes of
and how to
people and
train
events,
those event staff, which is
Yeah.
basic whatevers,
Yeah.
to search bags and what to look for. So we put all our volunteers through that same training, all our greeters, and we turned it into a greeter thing. And that's really where his wisdom shined through. I'm thinking like, no, men are going to do it.
It's gotta be a
cost
security
it.
protocol.
I was like, man, okay, again, I'm wrong. You're right.
Yeah.
You know more about this. He's been a pastor here for over 20 years. So he kind of knows what
knows
he's
the
doing. He's a really
congregation,
wise
yeah.
guy. And we go to him all the time,
Yep.
about issues that we have, and just seek his wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle this, sir? And he was the one that really set some of those protocols and procedures in place, and it definitely gave the bag searches a different face. At first, people were still like, why are we doing this? And it did take some time, but we just stuck with it. We stuck with it. And then San Bernardino happened.
Yeah.
When San Bernardino happened, that hit us really hard here locally in Southern California.
Yeah. So everybody knew somebody.
Our location, our school went on lockdown when that happened. It really
Rocked.
it really rocked our church. And suddenly the whole like, oh, look at these rent-a-cops kind of attitude, towards us completely switched to, God bless you, thank you for being here, thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Because they knew, like, we're out here putting our lives in danger, we're out here dealing with the people that you don't want here.
Yeah.
And on top of it, we are a very well-known church worldwide, and we are a massive terrorist threat, and I understand that, we know that.
Yeah.
So, and we do everything we can to combat that and to prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah.
So, that's and then the bag check thing, it's still hard, especially at certain campuses, like maybe the one that we're at right now. It's still things that we're always perfecting and working on.
Yeah.
But it is a procedure that's very important, that's in place. And I had a girl one time come up to me, and she was a law enforcement officer. She's like, "Oh, haha, you guys search bags, but I get my gun through all the time, nanner." And I was like, "Well, why don't you just tell me? Why don't you just identify yourself as a law enforcement officer because what if they do find your gun?
Yeah.
Guess
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going to happen? This is what's going to happen.
Then it can get weird.
One or two gentlemen are going to walk up to you and ask you to go into this other room. And then they're going to start having a conversation with you, and you're going to be very embarrassed up until you pull your badge out.
Right.
When you could have just identified yourself, which is another thing that we went into, identifying the people who carry on our campus, which is,
Another protocol.
sort of another protocol we have in place. So now the ushers, greeters sort of have an idea. There's little things that you can wear, and it's not just one thing, it's multiple things that you can wear where we know, like, oh, that person is
one of ours.
ours. And in our area, we have a lot of, I think one time we counted, like, there was like, outside of security, there was like 60 people with firearms in the church at one time, and I was like, oh, geez, that's scary.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But it's that's our area. That's kind of the way this area is.
This is demographic.
Yeah. So
At that campus.
those were that's sort of the story, and that kind of brings me up to bringing you in, and the reason I brought Byron in. So when I started hiring my staff, what I found was I found volunteers that wanted to work at this church, that were interested in becoming pastors. One of the guys was this young guy, MMA fighter, former Army guy, Army sniper.
Wow.
And then he was also a law enforcement officer. And he's like,
Awesome.
I want to be a pastor. I'm like, cool.
Cool. Yeah, come hang out.
Why don't you come be security? And then you could, so what he really did was, while he was going through all his pastoral studies at the church,
Yeah.
his responsibility was on the security side. So I put him in charge of the volunteers. And then I hired another retired LE guy, and they brought him on as a pastor, but they put him under me, and they put him on a different campus as kind of the primary counseling pastor. And at our church, we have, I think it's just at the main campus, there's 5 guys that are kind of just in charge of counseling, and 2 of those are retired LE. So that's great.
Yeah, no,
now,
it's nice.
they're not always 100% on. Like I had to win them over because they saw what we were doing and they didn't necessarily agree, or they thought it was kind of ridiculous.
Right.
Until they started seeing it work.
Yeah.
Once they started seeing it working and the fruits of it,
And it was an
they're
asset.
like,
It was an asset for them.
well,
as
look at them now. And on top of it, I never shunned them away. I never
Right. got offended.
got
or
offended or
competed
mad
with
or
them
you had an ego with them.
Yeah.
Because I knew I can learn from them.
Yeah.
Because they've been counseling crazy people in a church for
Forever.
20
Yeah,
years.
yeah, exactly.
After a 20-year law enforcement career. So it's
Yeah.
like, hey man, teach me, like, how do you handle this homeless guy that has scabies? Like, I
And
didn't
I
even
still
know what that
learn-
looks
I
like. And he's
still
like,
learn
don't touch
from-
that guy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
I still learn from him all the time. We had an incident the other day where I was like, the guy was like telling us his story and everything, and the pastor was staring at him, and he like goes back in his office, and I'm like, what was that? Like I was thinking
You
he was
just
gonna
left.
back me up. Like, you're supposed to pastor the thing and the deal, do the thing right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I'd have said hello, he would have started all over again. And I was like, oh, thank you.
yeah,
Because we were all just waiting for him to get his cathartic, like, spewing done so he could stomp off like he was in charge.
yeah.
I
So,
was like, yeah. Okay.
you know, that's what we look like now. You know, and then I brought Byron in, which was a big financial asset or financial commitment, I should say, because, you know, I know what you deserve, and, you know, we pay you what you deserve. And but I also got rid of a couple other smaller people that that had kind of worked their way in, like they worked themselves into a job, but those things didn't work out. I'm like, okay, if I get rid of this person, and
I've
then
got
I
no
put
idea what you're talking about.
everybody into, and then that was the other thing was we have a uniformed armed presence 24/7 on our campus, and I had to be very smart about how I financed that. Those positions are all part-time positions, which
Yeah.
saves me in the state of California a lot of
Yeah.
money. And so I got rid of some full-time positions, and that one full-time position gave me, 14 hours of coverage a day is the way I worked it out. 2 7-hour shifts. And then
Yeah.
I already had built into the budget for a night shift. I just switched the night shift from just a guard to a uniformed guard. And then I started hiring those guards and kind of picking those guys out. But which I want you to go into a little bit later, how you manage those guys, but because
Yeah.
that's kind of part of your responsibilities now. But I brought Byron in, and what I really wanted from Byron was I needed a good solid number 2, that I needed a response. I needed a hammer. I needed somebody who I could trust to go get in a fight with. You know, I kind of had the guys that could handle a lot of other smaller problems, but should kind of the worst arrive, whether it be a lethal threat or a physical threat or whatever it was, I wanted a number two with me to be able to react with me, like basically a partner. And also somebody who understood what I was trying to do on the exposed side of things. And we have a very professional look to us. There's kind of a uniform. We have a uniform code that we keep. You know, it's very much like an LE, but not like an LE, I guess is one kind of way to put it. But, you know, black pants, black shirt, a duty rig belt, at least a level 2 holster.
Yeah.
Handcuffs, some form of medical. We have kind of mass cas medical around the campus, but you know, something on your person's medical training. That's a whole other side we can get into later. But I needed somebody who had that physical presence, was behind me and could back me up on that. And because I didn't really have those guys there before. Yeah. And I needed that person who could be that response, and then also somebody who would come and train with me. Like, it's pretty hard to find guys to, you know, to put back into themselves. And I'm a huge, I can be a huge asset for the right person, and I knew that. And I think you've seen that working with me. It's like you've become you're on another level of shooting than you were when I met you. Like a whole nother stratosphere. You're playing a whole different game than you maybe even knew existed. And I think that happened because of us working together in that relationship.
No, that's definitely true.
So, you know, I was like, here's somebody that I can train, that I have history with and I trust. That was important to me too. I wanted somebody outside of the church that I had experience with. And you and I had been through hell together. So I knew I could trust you. You had saved my job multiple times. I had saved your job multiple times. I knew you would look after me no matter what. Yeah. And that's what I wanted. I wanted kind of that partner there. So I brought Byron in and, you know, kind of put him in charge of the volunteer staff and growing that team first initially. And then your duties basically were primarily our main campus. It's like, you worry about this, because on my side of the job, I have all these other campuses to worry about, manage. I have a budget to manage, as well as our senior pastor. He travels a lot and I travel with him. I act kind of as an executive assistant to him. I handle all of his travel, booking his travel, scheduling his travel, and then traveling with him. Whenever it's being announced he's going somewhere, I have to go. If he's going on vacation, something like that, he's not that recognizable of a figure where people are gonna, like, you know, storm him, or he's not Brad Pitt or something like that. Yeah. But so when he goes on vacation with his family or something, you know, we cross our T's and dot our I's. Nothing's booked in his name, etc., etc. But for the most part, I don't go on like a family vacation. Right. You know, that doesn't happen. So I'm pulled so many different places. I needed somebody to just focus on our main campus, and then that's when I brought you in. Yeah. And, you know, I guess kind of go into what it was like when you first started off and how you built not just that volunteer team, but the uniform side as well. Because when you came in, we just had one guy working an 8-hour shift. Yeah. And now we have what do we cover? 116 hours a week we cover. Mm-hmm. That's just during the day. That's not including our night guy, which we sub out to a different company. Yeah. Just due to the price and staffing. But we wanted to hire our own guys that were Christians, that were members of the church, understood our culture. Yeah. And that's a whole nother, you know, why we did that, because we started having guys acting inappropriate on the uniform guard side. But just kind of go into that.
And that'll happen too. Yeah, like I think really, you know, with, you know, day one, you get there, what do? Your pastor looks at you and he's like, hey, I want you to set up a church security detail. I think the first thing that a lot of guys forget to notice is you got a lot of assets right in front of you that you can use. And for me, it all starts in the sanctuary when I get to a church, like during kind of like the most sacred time in the whole deal. How am I going to protect? And the longest time that like probably your principal will be exposed on that platform, it really kind of goes into just venue security, you know, like what structure do I want to use, what volunteers do I want to put where, really, I kind of, at least the way I've done it, is not saying it's the right way, but that's usually where I start thinking about like who I want where and the placement, and then it kind of depends on how many people I have, you know. In terms of like importance, I would say the positions that are next to the platform, like an onion, kind of the positions that are closest to the platform, building outward is kind of how I think of the importance of positions inside the sanctuary, with the exception of your primary avenues of access to the pulpit. So, you know, a guy who's at the front of your center aisle and a guy that's at the back of your center aisle, both those guys are pretty important. But if I had to have just one, I'd have one closer to the pulpit, you know. Considerations like that. And you can protect a pulpit, I believe, with just a handful of good volunteers and good dudes that are at your church. And they don't have to be Jedi ninjas. I think they just really need to know what to look for and really be willing to step up and address something that could turn into a threat, or that is a threat, or that is a disturbance. So for me, you know, my first consideration is the sanctuary and how I'm going to protect the pulpit. Some key positions, the two guys, like you were saying, stage left and right, those guys are huge, and I have them actually facing the congregation. And that's just so that they can see anything approaching the pulpit and they can relay that information to the appropriate positions. Like I'll have a guy, one or two guys down the center aisle, and I'll have a guy at the mouth of every aisle closest to the pulpit if I have the manpower in order to jam those aisles, you know. And ideally, if something's happening and we, you know, and my position one or two gives us a heads up, I'll have the ushers actually address it long before I'll have security address it, just to make sure that we're getting, you know, the most finesse on it as that we can, you know. And if you're at a big enough church with enough administrative pastors, sometimes you can have an administrative pastor address it, you know. A lot of times people just want to be heard. So really, with regards to the structure inside of a platform, inside of a church, the first thing I keep in mind is the platform. The second things I pay attention to are the avenues of approach to the platform. And then the third things that I try to make sure I have bodies on are the entrances and exits, and make sure that we have all that access control, not access control, but that we have eyes on any of the entrances and exits to that building, to that sanctuary, essentially. Those are kind of the primary considerations. You know, you want your stronger, more able-bodied guys closer to the platform, because you legitimately might have to physically remove someone from the sanctuary. And it is not a very comfortable thing to remove someone from a sanctuary, okay?
There's a technique to it for sure.
It's
It's
not like bouncing someone out of a club.
you gotta practice it. And
But it's like,
yeah, clear the aisle. I mean, well, just to give you guys who are listening, hopefully some of you watching, what we do if there's somebody, whether it's a medical emergency or a disturbance in the service, what we do is we actually clear the aisle. And obviously, like most tactical decision, common sense dictates your, you know,
situation dictates tactics.
yeah. So
The types of aisles
you
we have.
you look at it and go, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get to this person? We find it best to just clear the aisle. And that comes from a lot of hard lessons learned.
And the types of aisles we have in the church.
Hashtag London.
Yeah.
So I pulled a lot of people from service, both, you know, disturbances as well as medical, to clear the aisle and practice doing it with your team. Get together with your team and practice these things. Another thing that you touched on a little bit was a lot of our guys, a lot of our positions have dual roles. So for example, at the beginning of the service, they might be in one spot, and then during the service, they'll be in another. Mm-hmm. So I think it's our sixth position. That is also a position that mans and manages bag checks as well. So he is that response person that's there should the bag checkers come across something fishy.
Yeah.
And then we have protocols, you know, after that. So you can do a dual role there, you know. Our front stage guys, our 1, 2, and 3 spots, that's our center aisle guy and our stage left, stage right guy. They are there as the doors open. They're there watching people walk in, just kind of being a set of eyes, and kind of, in a way, kind of a show of force. Like, oh, there's security at the front of the stage, and they're watching you walk in, and they're watching where you might be trying to sit. You're looking for people who might argue with an usher or something like that.
Right.
That weird guy that's like, I want to sit up here, and then starts getting in an argument.
Right.
So they're looking for those people while also being kind of a show of force. Those spots, that's what they do. Some of the other spots, they can have other jobs.
I think another huge tactic that we implement is, I've heard a lot of churches, security teams be kind of designed around law enforcement only, or designed around, a certain pedigree of volunteer. With us, we accept, as long as they have the right heart, and as long as they have, they're vetted. My thinking of the security organism on campus is that we're an information network. I need to know of everything. I'm taking in as much sensory information from my environment as possible through my security staff. We're all on our Zillow and on our radios, and I have women on my team. I have people in the bookstore, civilian looking, nice, sweet people that you would never in a million years think. And there's some of our most Black Force Super Trooper ninjas on the security team that actually do stuff because no one ever thinks they're security. And now they're getting the pertinent information that we need to do our jobs to the people who can do the other part of the job. And that's the main thing. I just need to know what's going on my campus. I need the right people to know what's going on my campus the fastest. And if it's law enforcement, we need to get that information to them the fastest. So the more eyes and ears we have, the more layers we have, and all the different demographics we can incorporate makes that information network and that information organism more effective.
Yeah. When I started off, it was a cop-only club. It was like, you're either cop or you're not. And if you're not, you didn't get to hang here. While I have a massive amount of respect for my LEs, and I love my LEOs, that is just not the case, guys. It's just not. You need everybody. And with that being said as well, and I've seen this at a lot of other churches, there's kind of like this club where it's like they kind of try to keep everything all sort of to themselves, and if there's bolos, they don't talk to other people about it and everything else. One of the first things I did when I started working there was, and this kind of came from some Secret Service protocols, I tried to get everybody on my team. I opened up lines of communication to my parking guys, of which we have at least 20 guys out there in a parking lot.
First line of information, defense. They look at vehicles. They see everyone coming into the church.
Yeah, my greeters, and then my ushers as well. And with the parking guys, I'll give you a little example. The churches in our area, we talk a lot. Anytime we have a problem, it gets shared. And another local church hit me up with basically a guy who had stormed the platform and yelled at his pastor and threw water on him and everything else.
Jeez.
He gives me the whole description of the guy, including what? A vehicle description. I give that vehicle description to my parking guys. No joke. 20 minutes after I gave them the description, they hit me up on the radio. Oh, hey, that blue BMW you were looking for just pulled in the parking lot. Now I'm addressing an issue in the parking lot.
Before they even get it.
Not in front in the foyer, not inside the building where security for some reason loves to hang out. I'm handling it in the parking lot. And my cameras are on him, and my guy up top is tracking him. He saw the car as well once it came through the comms. So we opened up that line of communication to them and just kind of brought them in as part of the team.
Yeah.
And they loved it. They're just like, yeah, man, you tell us what to look for, we'll find it.
And they do.
And they do.
And they do.
They do. Kind of going back to your other point, one of our top security assets is a 20-something-year-old attractive female who kind of looks like a little hipster, and I'm pretty sure she's the manager of a Home Depot. Why would most of you out there would probably say, no, I don't want to work with her. Why would I have her on my team? That girl's a ninja. She gets more done.
No one ever.
She gets more
ever-
done than
Yeah.
a lot of our assets, and she happens to be one of the best CP girls ever.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
totally trained herself up in it. She has actively responded to emergency situations in
Yeah.
the CP completely like a professional, not doing this. I've had like LE dudes like freak out in the CP trying to communicate and keep everything together while talking to local law enforcement assets, and she is an absolute ninja.
CP command post. We have a
Sorry.
command post.
Yeah. So you can really open it up to other people, and you don't know what you're missing. You
Yeah.
might find some. I mean, one of our top security leads is a jeweler,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's a gangster.
But he's
He's awesome.
yeah. It's just straight up social dynamics from the sales game, dedicated, puts more man hours in, and I mean he's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's one of those like if he wasn't when he's not there, it's like
Yeah.
he's not here today. Oh man, we gotta work harder.
And the glass is generally like half empty when you're dealing with someone who doesn't have a tactical background, you know?
Yep.
They're willing to learn, they're willing to take a
There's
look
no
at
ego.
There's no ego. They're like, how do you want me to do it? What are we doing here? And I'm like, sweet. This is not about being tough or anything like that. This is information network. I need you to push me the right information so we can make the right calls and respond in the most appropriate manner to the threat or to the medical emergency or to the whatever, the cookie burger, whatever's going on. We got to get there. Exactly, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So those are some considerations. The sanctuary, the path of travel. Well, the other consideration, he actually just touched on it, is the parking lot. You know, like you think about the path of travel. When a person enters your campus, what do you want them to see first? Do you want them to know? You know, you want them to realize that you guys are a hard target, that you're not a soft target. Where do you want to place that security guy that's going to be the first? Put yourself in the mind of someone who's coming to your church to do harm, and think about the impression you want them to have as they enter your facility or as they enter your campus. You know, there's a certain spot where we park our security cart, are right there on the hill. So when you turn into our parking lot, you see security right there on the golf cart. There's a guy standing right there. And you instantly know there's accountability here. So, you know, your first preliminary guys that are either at your front doors or your parking lot, what are those guys doing? Those guys are out there essentially kind of greeting, and they're interviewing people as they walk up. And there's an art to this. Like, this is security ninjutsu, you know what I'm saying? These guys need to come across as definitely, the deterrence value should be there, but they need to be the most nice, inviting, come on in, but how you doing, look you in your eyes. Are you still high from last night? Are you just upset because you and your husband or wife got in an argument? Or are you coming in here because, you know, like, hey, how you doing? They're interviewing everyone. You know, they're you know, essentially making contact with everyone in the nicest way possible, but also to see if they can trigger someone, also to see if someone needs prayer, also to see if someone needs to talk to a pastor to get a problem dealt with before they stand up in the middle of the message and try to get that problem dealt with.
And I will say that is a job definitely where, at least in my experience, LEs have really been successful at.
Yeah.
They pick up, I mean, that's what I pick up off of them. I mean, we have recently hired 2 more directors at our campus to manage volunteers only. So
Yeah.
Byron's having a lot more of an overall job, you know, here now. But we hired 2 more assistant directors, and one of them is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, active duty right now. He's deployed.
He's getting
Stinks.
it.
We're like, we really miss him right now, but he's getting it. He's also a retired lieutenant from a police department, and the other one is a retired fire chief of a large city fire department.
I'm learning so much from
So
these guys.
these guys just the way they handle the volunteers, it's
awesome.
it's unbelievable. But these LEs, like they're the ones that you like, man,
Put 'em in front of
deputy
somebody
dog,
and it's
you know,
like,
like
good luck.
he can look and be like, that person's on this. It's like, well, how
Yeah.
do you know he's on this? It's like, I can tell because the eyes are doing this.
Yeah.
And
It's a
the way
slow
he's doing
Tuesday
this.
for this guy.
It's like, how do you know? It's like it's not.
This is what I do
crack.
all day, every day. Yeah.
It's like I can just tell.
Yeah.
So they have that, you know, from just years of being a street cop, and they're just hard dudes, and they can pick up on it and they can read through it, and they've got those verbal skills to, you know, pick out a problem real quick, and
Yeah.
that's been a huge. I still learn from it all the time.
Yeah.
With them, and then kind of how to deal with them as well. You know, like with the homeless. Man, like my way of dealing with it was like. I'm a little more of a hammer. I'm not the nice guy on my campus. I'm let me just throw that out there. I'm definitely not the nicest person there.
I'm the nice guy.
He's the nicest person there.
Absolutely.
I'm a little more of like Luke. I need to get this guy out of here, and then like
Yeah, you come out.
I come out and it's yeah.
Meanwhile, yeah, I'm like tight.
I'm just more direct.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, so that's the kind of the game is you use everything you have and everyone you have to their strengths. You know.
And don't close it down. Don't close your team down. Communicate with everybody.
Yeah.
Communicate with all the volunteer teams. Oh, children's ministry. Become friends with them.
Yeah.
You know, they will know kind of issues that maybe a mom's, well, recently it was a dad that was divorced and the mom like lost it, and it's like, oh, you have a restraining order on her? She goes to this church? That's good to know.
Yeah.
You know, and then we end up getting a pastor and working it out where we know which services they're coming to, and
Yeah.
we know if that girl's trying to start problems, which she was that time, and the cops got involved, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So just have that communication. Open it up. Don't be the, SF secret squirrel team.
Yeah.
Don't be like that. Definitely open up lines of communication and be welcoming. Like just like a fusion center has for terrorism stuff. They want to hear from everybody, from lifeguards to SWAT teams. They want to hear from everybody.
And yeah, that's it. You're fighting a social battle. You're fighting a political battle if you're in a church. Period. So your security structure with regards to your sanctuary, with regards to your access points to the building, and with regards to your parking lot. Those are considerations. The path of travel that people will take in order to get on your campus. Those are more considerations. You can have the same people cover both of these aspects of your security structure, because before service, the flow of traffic is going to be kind of in a different area than it's going to be in during service. You have different considerations while the service is going. So you could have the same 6 guys that are, 4 of them are actually outside of the sanctuary, greeting, shaking hands, looking people in the eyes, in specific spots. When the service actually starts, you can pull them inside, you can put them in their seats, put them in their spots, covering the platform and the avenues of approach to the platform. Another consideration is going to be your travel, your paths of travel that your VIPs are going to take. When your pastor comes in, what entrance does he use to the parking lot? Where does he leave his vehicle? And his path to his green room, from his green room to the platform. Those are also places where you're going to want to basically have access control, or you're going to have security protocols to make sure that those areas are safeguarded. Anyone who's been in church long enough knows that getting a hold of the pastor on Sunday is something that a lot of people try to do, both sweet, loving, awesome people and also 5149s. So
And a half.
and a half and 3/4 and 5150s, man.
Yeah.
So that whole aspect, that's a whole other aspect. And if you do these things right, you can provide a safer campus, which will mean you won't have to focus as much on the body coverage necessarily. So if we have a client out in our amphitheater area, within that relative environment, we have 4 dudes who are all watching the client from different areas, so that as he moves relatively freely, there's not a guy necessarily like chasing him, but he's in a secure area.
Well, we, at least here in this local area, we have 2 campuses that our senior pastor speaks at. The main campus, the big campus, we run very much, I think the easiest way to explain it would be like a zone defense.
Yeah.
We run it
That's
very much,
exactly what it was like.
very much like a zone defense. We're just communicating when he's popping out. And it kind of depends on the traffic, the threat level.
Yeah.
Is there anything active on him? Are we worried about a couple people?
Yeah.
It's rare in
Almost.
Riverside we put somebody on him,
Yeah.
like as a body man.
Yeah.
It's super rare. Here at the smaller campus, everything's inside, everything's indoors. We're stacked here. We have
Yeah.
like so many guys. We average about in our main campus, we're averaging about I'm going to say what? 2 to 3 security personnel per 1,000
Probably.
on a Sunday. And here at our smaller campus, that turns like 2 to 3 per 100. So we have a lot of people here on a very small campus. So I can also, I've got some good body guys here.
Yeah.
I have some good
Yeah,
guys
some
that
rock
like
stars.
really,
both
they blend
guys.
in really well. I have one guy he's kind of a martial arts expert. He's not very tall. He's not a big stature guy. He just kind of is a good below the radar guy, and he blends really well with the pastor. To let you know, guys, Byron and myself, it's extremely rare we will ever be next to our pastor. Why is that? Because we are 2 of the guys in full duty rigs, in full kit.
Yep.
And our placement is external, because to us that is where the threat's going to come from. That is the threats that we're there to combat. We're the primary guys that are going to be able to combat those threats, and that's also where we're the most visually seen.
Yeah.
That's where
We're keeping
everybody
that
is
presence and
seeing
that
us.
accountability, and
Yeah.
we want to have as many
And
sensory impressions on the congregation as possible at all times.
We don't play hang out with the pastors.
Absolutely not. That's the quickest way to get caught up. If you're hanging out with the pastor and you're inwardly oriented on the pastor, how are you going to see the threat coming from another area? So we're kind of in Overwatch, and 90% of the issues that happen on the campus, I don't go and address because I'm fully kitted out with an exposed weapon. I'm using my volunteers to go ahead and deal with.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with
Situation definitely dictates. Because
Situation
sometimes it is
definitely
us. Like
dictates.
we had some protesting issues recently.
Yeah.
We were the ones that went down and dealt with that.
Yeah.
Man, I wanted that guy to hit you with the sign so bad. I was gonna hit you with that sign. I was like, please hit him with the sign.
And because there's such a wide array of issues happening in a church at all times, something that you got to work on with volunteers that don't have a tactical background is not to suck into one problem and look like a little kid's soccer game. If there's one issue and everyone wants to get in there, you got to make sure they understand, hey, we need to maintain our security structure on the campus just in case this is just a diversion, and those types of things. And because you're dealing with anything from a homeless person to a medical emergency, someone fainted, to just someone who needs prayer, to someone who's high at church, all these different issues. Well, what you really need to do when you first roll up is is this a security issue or is this like a pastoral issue? So I'll lead very often with my volunteers just because my presence kind of escalates the situation because I'm fully kitted with an exposed weapon and I kind of resemble an officer to a lot of people who can't tell the difference.
And you're a big, giant, jacked,
I'm a big black guy.
black dude.
And
And I'm no small fry either, but
Right.
still, it's. Having said that, look at the issue we had this past Sunday with a guy, that stood up, got hostile in a service,
Yeah.
was escorted out, and then got real hostile externally. You and I walked
the
up,
second he
and
saw us?
that dude's attitude went from ah to yeah.
I'm leaving. You
I'm
got.
gonna. Is this the
Yeah.
exit?
Yeah.
It's right over here. So,
Exactly.
so
And he found
That-
his way off campus.
that is something, pastors, directors who might be listening to this, man, you're gonna be hard pressed to find somebody to say this to you, honestly. But I am a strong, firm believer in the exposed duty
100%.
setup. If they tell you otherwise, it's because they don't want to do it because you're being lazy. It's not fun. Sometimes it's 100 degrees, 120 degrees outside, and I'm sweating through kit, but it doesn't
First
matter. That's my
time.
job. It's what I'm there to do.
First time I ever rolled exposed since the Marine Corps. I've been CCW'd up every single thing I've
Yeah,
been.
it was not sexy.
So for me, it was
But
like
you
I
make
got to
it
do
sexy.
this.
You
I
do.
do make it
You
kind of
do make it
sexy.
sexy.
you have to come to our church to see that. But anyways, yeah, no, and it's true. I can't tell you the amount of times when. We do our counseling in the front office, and there's a guy there getting disgruntled with one of the pastors, and I just walk out of the CP. So I just walk out of the CP, and I'm like, go check the radio, go check my mailbox, kind of look over a little bit, and they just chill out. You know what I mean? And that is what good security is supposed to do. That's what that hard response is supposed to do.
Yeah.
We've seen a difference in our campuses. The campuses that didn't at first have as much of a hard response. We had an issue. We saw issues run from our campus where we had that hard targeting and that overt security presence. We had congregants that were upset come to the other campus and try to cause problems there. So we had to expand the program,
Yeah.
and it validated the model even more.
I don't. I just and I have this argument with some of my peers from other churches from time to time, but I don't. Looking at them, I don't think I would necessarily say you're the guy for that either.
Yeah.
Just their stature and their physical
You need to-
capabilities
yeah.
at the time. But you can find these good guys that are willing to do this, and you might be in a state where it's totally fine.
Yeah.
I will say this, since we've started it, I know a lot of really big churches who copied exactly what we did.
Exactly.
And it's working for them. And I'll go to them, like in Texas. I remember one of the this huge mega church in Texas, their pastor came. I took care of him for a day. I drive our pastor from campus to campus on Sunday mornings. He speaks at multiple campuses. And I, played driver to him, and he saw what we did. He's like, next time I went to his church, he made us look like a joke.
Yeah.
He had like 50 dudes just all in uniform.
Healthy dudes.
Where'd all these?
yeah.
He's like,
If it's
I
the
have
one
a
we went to
church of
last time, I was
40,000 people. I'm like, oh,
Cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Right.
We're over
He's
here,
I'm like,
whatever.
do you need licenses? He's like, it's Texas, bro. I don't
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I'm in America.
Yeah.
I get to. By the way, the camera's inverting the flag. It's not backwards.
yeah, the flag's not.
Anyways.
This is my left hand.
Yeah. No, but that overt security presence I think makes a huge difference.
Massive.
What
And
about?
it is definitely what I think sets us apart from a lot of teams is how overt we are.
Yeah.
And it goes noticed. And man, now you guys, I really think that the attitude of the people nowadays, especially with what we've been seeing in the news media and such, has completely changed to that.
Yep.
I think now it's more welcomed. Like
I've been getting. I always get thank yous.
people
Thank you so
walk
much.
up to us. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. It's kind of awesome being the guy like
Yeah, and
in kid.
another thing is equip your security, especially your guys that are exposed and your uniform guys. Equip them with an alibi. So when someone's like, "Hey, is something wrong? Why are you guys here? Why is the church doing this?" Come up with ahead of time what you guys are going to tell the congregation. And I usually say something along the lines of, everything's fine. But just based in light of things that have happened, and the American culture is changing, and in light of things that have been taking place inside our country, our pastoral staff has decided for us to be proactive and kind of set a presence here that will allow us to protect you no matter what takes place where in the sanctuary. And they generally start off all like looking at me like, "Why do you have a gun?" And after I explain that, they're like, and I'm like, just the better to protect you with and make sure that you have a safe experience here. And they're
And
like,
that doesn't happen anymore. That happened like 2 years ago.
yeah, exactly.
Nowadays, it's like
They love it.
now we've added uniform guys
Yeah.
to our services, and they're just like, "Oh, I see. There's a guy over by this gate, next to the CM." It's like, "Yes, ma'am. We're widening our
Expanding.
presence," and they're just like, "Oh, thank you so much." I've had people
And
come
now
up
to
to
the-
us pastors and say, "We go here because we
Yeah.
trust the security at this church."
Yeah.
It's been said to me numerous times. And also go in a bit to we do have a uniform set up for our volunteers
Oh yeah,
who
so
carry CCW as well. That's a whole nother layer.
exactly. And so our volunteers that are like really highly motivated and who want to kind of really make more of that type of an impact, they get their shirts embroidered with our security division logo. And now our uniform presence has just increased exponentially on any given Sunday. So that's another kind of way that we make ourselves appear bigger and harder. And that's working out great. Something else I want to talk about too is the bolo list. We do keep a list of rolling bolos, but a consideration is that we don't send that list out to people. We keep that kind of under our hat, and we send minimal information and headshot, which actually goes right into kind of what we're using for comms. I think that's good for people to hear because it's free and it works very well.
Mine is on right
And
now.
yeah, some people like it, some people don't. But what we use, beginning of a service, one of the things we do is we have our meeting at the beginning of the service before everyone goes to positions. We give them a brief on what's been taking place on campus throughout the week while they haven't been there, and we have. and we tell them, you know, what bolos, what kind of situations, if there's anything for them to be mindful of, anything for them to look for. We give them a full brief. In that brief, we also, everyone who's there, we get everyone on a group chat, either via text or via the app that we use for communication, which is Zello.
It's Zello.
Zello.
It's free. It's secure.
Yes.
We have it's password
Password,
protected.
yep.
It's encrypted.
Yep.
It's impossible to hack.
Yep. For now.
And everything is recorded. All of your conversations are recorded
Everything.
within the app. That's like some next level Secret Service ninja stuff.
Everything. So anyone, like, you know, we had incidences where, you know, we needed someone to call the police and someone didn't hear the command, like, hey, I didn't hear you say call this, that, and the next thing. Well, you can just go into the little upper right corner and it'll show every transmission from every single person all the way back to the beginning of the formulation of your group. That's password protected and encrypted, and you can press play and it will just play you everything everyone said through the whole thing. The app is amazing. Like that's like a whole nother kind of podcast.
Communications is a whole other podcast.
That's a
for
huge.
sure.
But
Yeah.
for those churches who are struggling on, so what should we do for a comm plan? Try Zillow out first.
We used to spend tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
on radios.
Even the little Baofangs, little $20 radios.
And then some of you dudes
that
out
break
there
every
who
6
can't
months.
keep an earpiece alive for more than like 2 weeks.
Can't do it. You can't do it.
Now I don't have to do that. I have and I'm all Bluetooth. I have my phone, and then for me, you used your Bose. I use the little Apple AirPods, and then we have push to talks by a company called Prime. It's
Prime,
spelled
son.
Pryme, and Prime has all sorts of little push to talk
Radio
setups
gear,
and radio earpieces and whatnot,
Yeah.
specifically for the Zillow app.
Yep.
And it's pennies to the dollar
Yeah.
for communications, and it's a much higher level of communication.
No
in our-
geographical impediments. I'm literally in Israel, and I'm like,
You're talking to me.
I'm talking to
It was
him
awesome.
here. He's like, hey, how you doing out there? I'm like, I'm doing good, man. How's Sunday going? He's like, oh, yeah, we're doing good. Blah. He was in Texas. He's like, yo, what's going down? I'm like, things are good, man. It's just another Super Bowl Sunday. We're getting it in. You know, like, and just crystal clear because it works off of your cell phone
a cell phone
data
satellite
rather than
kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like it works everywhere, and you don't have to have great service for it to work. And also, more importantly, at least for me in a director position, there have been times like I was in DC one time and you
Yeah.
had an issue, and I think you just text me Zillow,
Yeah.
and I got on and I was able to hear everything happening and also start making some command decisions that needed
Yeah.
to be made at the time.
like that.
And I was in Washington D.C., like outside the White House.
Yeah, and
It
I
was awesome.
literally, and I run it for my other details. Like I have another detail where it's always on. Like if someone needs to know something, and they can just be like, "Yo, Byron, are you on here?" And I'm like, "Yo, what's up, dude?" And they're like, "Hey, man, you know, when we get to the tree house, do we turn left or right? Like, is it a green or white sock that we put on the thing?" And I'm like, "Yo, put the green sock on the thing."
Do grasshoppers have machine guns?
Yeah, I'm like, on Thursdays, grasshoppers have machine guns. You know what I mean? Like, and that. Sometimes, you know, when you're on it, anyways, and then on details, the other thing I like about it, real quick, Zillow, shameless plug, everyone's got Bluetooth on. So it's ultra low profile, it's less spooky when you're working, you know, just a normal EP detail. You walk around with your ear pods in, your client's not thinking like, oh, I got these stiff guys with me that are skylining me. Nah, you're just a dude with an ear pod in or a Bose headphones in, and now you guys have communication, green light. You don't have to pass it through you do all the phone stuff. You literally just push a button.
Yeah, I have
And-
friends. I
and
have
you're
friends
talking
that
to
are
each other.
spending like churches. They're spending like tens of thousands of dollars on communications and repeater systems and everything else, and then they're having to like update them every couple of years because it's like, oh, now we got to go digital.
And fix them. And
Like, what the heck?
antennas are breaking. And
Yeah, and I mean we do have a hard radio setup. Obviously, that's why there's a radio right here.
Yeah.
But it's rare we use it, and it's really only used for
The other departments.
for the other people to get a hold of us, because a lot like our CM, parking, ushers, they're not on Zillow. We've encouraged them to do so, but they are not. A lot of guys will complain to you about the technical aspects of Zillow, and I sort of just look at them like, if you can't figure this out, how can I count on you to figure out a legit problem?
Yeah, more sophisticated.
Like this
problem.
it's big boy rules kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
figure it out.
Here's your
And
list of gear that works.
Having said that, I know guys who are like still learning how to text on their cell phones, but they figured out the Zillow because they cared.
he wired it into his hearing aids and got
that guy.
Yeah, we
So
got guys.
major.
If they want to figure it out, they can figure it out. But you know what? You know, there's a reason that half the children of Israel didn't make it into the promised land. That's all I'm saying. God bless them. Anyways, so yeah, on comms, the Zillow is a good thing you can look at. Some more considerations, you know, when looking at your pastor's travel, route of travel into the parking lot, green room, onto the sanctuary, and on into the sanctuary, and then his egress considerations. Where do you want people to be when he comes off the platform? You're not done when service is over, and how you're going to safeguard him after that whole thing, because the personnel on property, everything's going to shift, which is going to require you probably to go back to your original security posture, the one you were maintaining before everyone was in the sanctuary. So really what it comes down to principally, in my opinion, is thinking the problem through from the beginning to the end. All right, Sunday morning starts. How are these people going to enter my facility, enter my building? What security impressions do I want them to enter the building with? During the service, what security impressions do I want them to see? What security procedures do I want in place in case of XYZ? Another consideration is medical is probably going to be one of the things that'll keep you the busiest. It'll keep you busier than actual human threat situations, depending on your congregation demographics. But we've had everyone from old to young pass out during service and need an ambulance and need us to go ahead and deal with that. So you have to have a plan for that.
Okay, SOPs. When you came into my church, when I hired you, I had some SOPs in place, very basic stuff, but you really drilled them down, and this is a lot more volunteer. I want to talk about the volunteer specific ones, because obviously the ones for our hired paid staff guys, not everybody's going to come across that, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of the same principles kind of cross over. But talk about writing the new SOPs, what that was about, the communication with me, with other pastors, like kind of what you learned from our mistakes, and then also how you implemented those with the volunteers. Half, I'd say maybe like a third or half of your volunteers were new. Mm-hmm. And I'll touch into this real quick, guys. You are going to come across volunteers that are there for the wrong reason. You're going to come across volunteers that they want to be close to the pastor. They want to be there is kind of
There's like a
churches have its own social
want.
structure, you know, and sometimes guys are there for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And you know, that's really something that I encourage you to seek out the knowledge on yourself, or maybe find some pastors that are already successfully kind of running some volunteer programs.
Yeah.
And just really kind of look into it biblically, you know, why you serve, why people serve, and that'll help you kind of look for the right type of individuals,
Yeah.
you know, to serve on your ministry. But you know, we've had our problems here. We've had our cancers. We've
Yeah.
had guys that just, you know, they were like cancer in a team. They were like poison.
Yeah.
And it spread, you know, and I think I'll pat myself on the back and say I did a pretty good job of weeding some of those out.
Yeah.
Because some of those had to do with some staff members, but for the most part, I always kept it private and I never let it affect my team. But then I brought you in, and it was very much, you were younger than a large majority of our volunteers.
Yeah.
You know, you're in early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you came on, you were 30 or 31, something like that. And so you're dealing with guys who are like, I was on a police department as long as you've been on the earth, you know?
Yeah.
But you commanded their respect, and you took over the team really well. And I always had your back there, and I think that communication was important between the two of us. So for you leaders out there, or pastors looking to bring somebody like a Byron in, you know, you have to have that communication. So go into that, and then also
trust.
kind of how you set up the SOPs, and then how you implemented the newer SOPs with the volunteers.
Mm-hmm. And on what he was saying with volunteers, you're looking for volunteers that have the right attitude, that have the right energy, that have the right optics and perspective and paradigm around volunteering. If that isn't there, you're going to have a volunteer that's going to deal with people heavy ego, or all it takes is one or two incidents with someone who doesn't have the right mentality, and just because they're law enforcement or just because they're prior military or just because they might have the appropriate hard skills doesn't mean they're going to be good on your volunteer force, because one incident where they escalate a situation that doesn't need to be escalated because they're a tough guy, or just because, you know, one incident where someone makes a mistake can give your security team, department, a bad name. And think about it, church security or place of worship security, you're doing security among the same demographic. So your reputation sticks to you extra. It's not like a club where like new patrons are coming in. It's like you're reborn every single night of the week. You know, like this, you are making a bed with a congregation. And so, you know, making sure that you have people that have the proper like social dynamics and are really doing the job in a way that is going to make your detail look good is very important. And that means they have to be on that team for the right reasons, just as he was saying. So just a side note there. And then really when it came to writing SOPs, kind of my primary considerations were, you know, I was new to the environment, so I spent a few Sundays just soaking everything up, looking at everything, talking to different department heads, talking to the children's ministry. I came in and I leaned heavily on the people who had the knowledge of the lay of the land, the terrain, the customs and courtesies, the systems that are in place, what systems are working, what systems could be improved. And it was really from that stuff that I then kind of added my perspective and added a little bit of kind of like my input on it and what I had learned within my like private security experience. But I'd say like the keystone to coming in and taking the helm, that ship by the helm, and doing it in a way that was like affectatious and that caused a very smooth transition really came down to understanding who's who in the zoo, showing respect to the right people, and being able to gain rapport by leading with respect and and secure the right relationships to get the information. Because when you first come in, you need information in order to become accurate. And that was the main thing. Now on that campus specifically where I first created the SOPs, there's so many considerations. We have a school there. We have a church there. We have multiple services taking place at all times. So on the volunteer side of things, those are kind of the things that we're always keeping in mind. You know, the volunteers are there more often during the church services and church functions. So actually those SOPs were more streamlined than my uniform guys' SOPs, for sure. But really the SOPs are designed to set a baseline that everyone's familiar with, to give them a proper response or an appropriate response for any threat that you can come up with, for any emergency you can come up with, for any situation you can come up with. An SOP is a standard operational procedure for all of you who are just kind of getting into this game. And really the way I wrote those is I took a Sunday or a service day and I started from the beginning of the day, and I was like, what do they need to know from the very beginning of the day all the way to the end of the day and everything in between? And where am I going to put everything? Where am I going to put our medical caches, our wheelchairs? Where are we going to take someone if there is an emergency? Just our brevity codes, what to do when an ambulance gets onto our property. Just any and everything that you can really come up with is really what I put in those things. And it's a living document, so as things progress, you always want to be updating those things. And then kind of the protocol is when we get a new person, it's in my welcome email. I send them a link to the SOPs and I go on ahead and I let them read those SOPs. And there's nothing really in the SOPs that's very sensitive to where if the SOPs got out, we would be undone, you know. While it does have our protocols, it does have principles that we operate by, and it does have specifics, it doesn't necessarily have all of our tactics. Things that should only be privy to like myself and you and like leadership kind of cadre, we work out internally on our own all the time.
And we kind of have like built in within our team sort of like a little, I don't know what you could call it. It's like its own little SF unit, you know, for different things.
Yeah.
Like we have we have guys that like we know what they're there for. They're there
for the
for
threat.
the worst case scenario
Yeah.
kind of thing, and they're just sort of hanging out with us, and we'll walk the campuses with them. We'll share with them our like how we're going to clear a specific building and what we're going to do in an active shooter scenario. Pro tip: do not go buy and purchase a super expensive active shooter training from a company that has the name Response or something with a dog or something like that in it, because it's free. You can get all this stuff from the Department of Homeland Security, or you can go online on the tube of you and look up the LA County Sheriff's Department active shooter training. That 15-minute video has everything you need to know if you're listening to it and you're listening to everything they're saying. That has everything you need to know to properly set your staff up with an active shooter plan. Anyway, continue, please.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what we had them come out and they just played the video and answered questions. You know, like situation dictates tactics, and so I think the smartest approach, their approach is principled. You know, it's, you know, what do you have these 3 responses, and what do you do in all these different situations? Well, you just take a look at which one of these tactics fits your situation best, and then you respond. You know, because I could teach you, you know, what to do if there's a purple elephant stampede, or what to do if there's all these different things, but that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to need to have people educated in principles that'll help them apply tactics relative to their situation at the time. So yeah, with the SOPs, another thing I did was I went to every department head that was in our environment, and I asked them, hey, what do you need? What would you like to see? What type of considerations do you have, security related considerations on a Sunday, on a service day? And I just basically took in as much information as I could, as quickly as I could, to be able to fashion those SOPs. And I really leaned heavily on the guys that have been there in the trenches before I came. And it worked out well, and then I applied my knowledge from overseas to the SOPs, and what I know is ultra important once a service is started, you know, where I need guys to maintain a responsible security structure. Another reason why I do let large volumes, why I do have so many people on our security team is because, you know, someone gets on one of our campuses and we recognize them, or they're a bolo, the more eyeballs I have, the more information I have. And people cannot disappear on our campuses anymore. Like, if something happens, they're being watched by everyone. Oh, another thing, what about liaising with kind of government organizations and contacts? And
Yeah, I mean,
that's huge.
kind of going back to what I said before, one of the first things I did was I contacted a local Department of Homeland Security representative. I became a member of InfoGuard. If you don't know what that is, Google it and become a member. That's like kind of 101 stuff. Like when somebody calls me and they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so with this church, and we're starting up a security team. One of the first things I tell them to do is to go ahead, become a member of InfoGuard. What that opens up for you is number one, training, legitimate training.
Yeah, all the time, on all kinds of things.
And you can take training for, well, one, I really highly recommend you become a TLO, which is a terrorism liaison officer. Take that course, learn how to report tips, and have that relationship with your local fusion center, which you're going to have one because they're all over the United States. Here we have 2 that we deal with. And then the trainings that you're able to take is everything from IED recognition to like the protective measures course I told you about. I've taken it twice, the surveillance detection course that was opened up to us.
Yeah.
Churches are now considered a critical infrastructure, and because of that opens up a lot of things to you on the federal and local side and building those relationships.
Yeah.
The other thing we have, you're a little stronger with the guys in Riverside than I am, but we have those direct contacts to our local law enforcement.
Yeah.
So if we have a problem, we can report it directly to them. If we've had times when we received a legitimate threat, like for this one instance, it was in the form of a letter and it was a death threat. And the police officer who showed up like blew it off, and he's like questioning, going, well, I don't think this is that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And then he wants to talk to the head pastor, and we're like, yeah, man, that's just not going to happen right now. but I need you to take
Dude.
this report because that's what I've been. So what do? I contact that I think he's a detective, right? One of the two guys.
Yeah,
is.
our guys.
They're detectives who are assigned to the local JTTF office, and contacted him. He was like, "Yeah, what's the officer's name? Yeah, standby."
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I know, the dude's attitude completely changed, and he took the report that he was asked to originally come and take. You know, and it was because we had those relationships there. Also, we are in communication with our local first responder type teams, like our SWAT teams and such, as well as our bomb teams and our Canine teams. We open up our facility for them to come and train on a regular basis. Some of those guys have turned into my best friends. You know, one of them's, was just here at our service tonight, and
Like,
he's like one of the head guys on that local SWAT team, and I was just talking to him about him coming to this campus and training.
Yeah.
We had this campus here, this smaller campus, we had an active threat that involved a rifle and a pistol. Luckily nobody was here, but because of those relationships that we created, they were able to tap into our video surveillance. They already had blueprints on hand. Some of the guys had already been through here.
Yeah.
They knew the lay of the land. They knew what it looked like, and the situation was ended much better than it could have, and it ended much smoother because there was that communication. I was actually home at the time that happened, and I got a personal phone call from a lieutenant saying, "I need you down here now." Yeah. And I was able to get in the command post, get on the phone to my IT guys who were able to get online and look at these cameras and kind of see what was happening inside, and then relaying that information and those video feeds directly to that command post that was set up. And now they have direct communication with the operators on the ground, with the SWAT teams on the ground.
Which caused everything to end. Happy ending.
Which it could have been a much worse ending than it was. And that wouldn't have happened without that communication. And just kindly offer it to them. If they don't take to it, then don't just stop trying.
Yeah.
Go above them or go below them, or just find guys that want to work with you. Especially churches nowadays, they are a target. You are a target.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you're foolish to think otherwise. You're foolish to think it won't happen to me, because guess what? You're talking to two guys right now who it's happened to multiple times at every level you could think of, and it's not a if, it's a when. And you need to be prepared for that, and you can work with your local law enforcement instead of just shunning them out, like thinking that you know better.
Well, and it's not so much even it's something as simple as, someone's being counseled and someone's husband or wife just doesn't want to deal with 90%. Most of the issues that happen, the active shooters and human threat scenarios are domestic issues. It's, someone's wife's coming to church with their new boyfriend, and the other husband rolls up and starts popping him in the parking lot. Or it's, disgruntled husband that's going to come back and ends up shooting 20-some people in a church in Texas, a lot of these scenarios and a lot of things that happen if you start really researching violent acts that take place in places of worship. A lot of it's just domestic stuff that spills over, like even people that you think because you just have to look at what's happening there. You're shepherding a segment of the public, really almost anything can happen.
Yeah.
These things, it's definitely to be taken seriously.
And for you, the EP lifestyle guys out there, that maybe you have a church, maybe you have some experience. If you're, I don't know how to put this, but I want to get a little bit more in depth into the training aspect and the response of things. Mm-hmm. A guy with a gun is not always the answer at a church. Mm-hmm. Actually, in our case, it hasn't been the answer yet. Yeah. Thank God for that. Yeah. There are times when it could have been the answer, but it wasn't because of things that we had in place, and I think the training. But on the training aspect of things, we're lucky enough to kind of have relationships with with trainers out there who have a lot of experience, who can kind of brainstorm. Like for me, one of the big guys I've picked his head a lot is Mike Pannone with CTT Solutions. Another guy was our friend here, Chris Scahill, just walking this place with us. And then we have members of some very active SWAT teams from LA County Sheriff's Department, Orange County Sheriff, Riverside Sheriff Department. Those are teams that do a lot of call outs. Like I think Orange County Sheriff did more call outs last year than LAPD did.
Yeah.
And we picked their brains and we asked them, because Byron and I will discuss, issues and problems, like how would we handle this? How would we deal with this on a threat side of things? And then we get together with guys like that and we just sort of spin it. And these are also guys that don't play the whole what if grasshoppers have machine guns? Kind of thing. These are guys that don't play that game. They'll sit there and if they like our response, they'll tell us they like it. Actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Or they might give us a couple, devil's advocate things to see what we say. Like Daryl's great at that, our friend Daryl. He's great at being devil's advocate, and if we answer him correctly, he's like,
not bad.
Yeah, well done. That's awesome. I would do that. But how do you? I know for me, one of the big things I talked a lot to Mike Pannone about was, a kind of a gun threat in a church, and he just looked at me. He's like, "What do you do?" Guy stands up with a gun in a church. ... And I'm like, "What do I do?" Well, for me at least, with my physical capabilities and my training, I'm probably going hands-on because I don't want to think about having to make a shot in a sanctuary, to be honest with you, And like I had guys like, well, I take a knee, so if I shoot, I'm shooting up. I'm like, well, guess what, dude? I got balconies and stuff. And yeah, that brief's really great, but it's not realistic. I'm probably going to go hands-on and things like that. But on a training side of things, I know a lot of churches are, at least I have churches that contact me. They're like, where do I get firearms training and this, that, and the other thing? And, I have my own theories on marksmanship training. I don't believe you can become a good shooter by taking courses. But for you have a lot more experience kind of in the general, public training aspect that I do. What do you recommend for not just a volunteer team, but for the guys that work at the churches as well, like staff members? Like what has helped you in the last 2 years training wise prepare you better for the church?
To me, repetition is the mother of all skill and learning. And so what I've found is courses are exposure to tactics, but if you really want to benefit from the tactics you're learning, or if you really want to benefit from, you really want to get good at a skill, you need repetition. And so what's helped me more than anything is getting up on Saturday and going and shooting in a competition. Even if it's just once or twice a month, take a course and then get up and go to your local competition. I think USAA or IDPA are both great places where you can learn how to manipulate your firearm, shoot, move, and learn to process and think while you're shooting. And guys that I think do that on a regular basis, I think outperform guys that just go to courses on a regular basis. And so if we're talking about hard skills and staying sharp when it comes to firearm stuff, I'm going to say that getting on practicescore.com, taking a look at what shooting matches are taking place in your area, getting your 5 mags, and
your 15 mags.
If you're in California, and going ahead out there and being vulnerable and seeing how you stack up and pushing yourself is the best way to, in my opinion, to stay sharp. Because you don't have time, we don't always have time to just go and do, just range days and things like that. It's the good thing about competing is you got a stopwatch, you got a timer, you got people watching, you can get a little stress monster on it.
What about on the non-firearms side? What trainings? Like for me, the one thing that really stands out is the thing with Yusuf.
The counter surveillance stuff. Yusuf Badu is a guest on, I think it's episode number 6. It's predicting people, and what he really teaches is the hunter-killer program.
No, it won't. Sorry.
Edit that
Edit
out.
that out.
Anyways, so Yosef Badu is another guest that I had, and he teaches. He's got a company called Emergence, and their slogan is predicting people, and he taught the Hunter Killer program to the Marine Corps for almost a decade, and one of the most I think important classes that I've taken really to help me out in private security, and also something I think has contributed the most heavily to kind of what's really made a lot of our best guys good is one, that book Left of Bang that talks about that program and the different various tactics that are involved in learning how to predict people and learning how to predict pre-threat indicators, and really a lot of training, all the training around that. If there is one course or one type of learning, I would say that you need to expose your volunteers to and expose your security personnel to. Really, with any type of security you're doing, I would say it is the pre-threat indicator, left of bang, hunter killer type stuff, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's.
I think it's by far the most informative course that pertained to this job I took all year.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a course hoe,
No,
but
he's not.
I that was one that, like, the second you told me about it, I was like, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, I'm signing up for that, and I'm spending my own personal money on it. And I think I bought 30 Left of Bang books to hand out to guys.
Yeah.
And I just asked guys, like, it was to the point where in our security briefing Sunday morning, I told them about the class I took, that we took, and that we had a couple guys there too. We had a few of our staff members
brought some folks.
and volunteers there. And I was like, if anybody is interested in this book, come up to me right now.
I'll buy it.
And I'll buy you the book right now. And
He bought some books.
half the guys just got it them. Is that on Amazon? Cool. Burp, burp, burp. And they just bought it. But
Yeah. I got
one
the
guy was like,
audiobook.
I need it on Kindle. And they were getting audiobooks and stuff. So I know a lot more members on the team ended up getting it, themselves. But that, I think, was a huge, and they
Huge.
talked about it, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. It's like, this job can be as fun as you
make it.
As you make it.
Yeah, 100%. What would you say about canine response?
Oh, Canine. That's something that,
Obviously.
man, if there's, when I get into the conversation with other directors of security at churches, it's usually like, you got this? Yeah, you got this? Yeah. You got this? Yeah. You got this? Yeah. And I usually hit,
Wait till the
two
end.
things. The roof guys.
Yeah, the roof guys.
That's
are
one where
good.
they're like, ooh, dang it, that's a great idea. And so, a large majority of these security protocols that I put into place, I stole from other people. For example, we have a good relationship with the guys at Disneyland. And when I heard Disneyland started doing bag searches, I was like, the happiest place on earth does bag searches?
We can do bag
Absolutely, I can do bag searches.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when I present it to my boss, I'm like, I want to do this. He's like, what? I'm like, Disneyland's doing it. And he goes like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you can't go to Disneyland right now without getting your bag searched.
You can't.
Bottom
do it.
line.
Yep.
And then those guys, the other churches,
Yeah.
I mean, from another huge mega church in the area, the guy's like, you guys doing bag searches? Yeah. He goes to his pastor's like,
They're doing
hey,
it.
pastor, Harvest is doing bag searches. He's like, they are? Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, we should be doing bag searches. And the guy's like, ha, it worked.
Yeah.
But where I always trump everybody is on the canine side of things. And we were very fortunate to have guys from members of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, SEB team, and as members of our church. And they worked locally with a guy named Daryl Gaunt, Paraclete Canine. If you are looking for anything canine related, he is the go-to guy.
Yeah.
He is like it comes to the point now that when I meet dog guys, if I mention his name to them and they don't know who he is, it's like they're instantly not legitimate in my eyes. Because I've met guys from the top tier units in the military that are dog guys, and I mention his name and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we know who he it's like being a long range shooter and not knowing who Todd Hodnett is. Like, if you don't know who he is, then you just don't know that world. And Daryl's that kind of guy. So Daryl kind of got us started into this, and we got really lucky. He found us this really special dog that was coming out of a military team that lost a toe, and we got her, and then he found out she was on odor, and he sponsored her through bomb school, and then our church paid a little bit of money too for the hybrid scents and things like that she needed to have for bomb school. And now we have a dog that would cost us 80 to 100 grand to purchase right now for a very, very low price. And we have multiple handlers that are experienced handlers that can come on and handle her. And man, that dog thing, that was something that at first people were like, why is there a dog here? Now it's like, where's the dog? And she's the most popular member of our.
Where's the dog?
She's the most popular member of our entire security team. When she's there, everybody's like happy. When she's not there, everybody's like, where is she? And I'm like, what are we, chop liver? Like we're just like, they love the dog. They love seeing her work. They love seeing her do her little bomb search, and she does a whole campus-wide search, including the sanctuary before it opens.
Exactly.
Before we show up, we've had guys walk up, drop backpacks, run away. I was like, holy crap! Like, I've seen this movie, And from afar, guy throws a little laser on it, sends her on a search, and we're just like, please don't sit, please don't sit, please don't sit, please don't sit. And she goes, sniffs it, comes back, he's like, bag's clear. Then we go and we check the bag, and it ends up being some, homeless dude who just threw his bag down. He was running to the bathroom or something.
Yeah.
So, that's been a huge, and talk about a force multiplier. It's
the biggest deterrent.
People walk up and they're like, "What's your dog do?" And the best is when the guy walks up, "Is your dog? Is that a drug dog?" I'm like,
Yep.
She's not, but I just say she is because why not? And the guy's like, "Oh, what can she smell?"
Everything.
She's a bomb dog, a drug dog, and the meanest biting dog you've ever seen in your life. But she is a patrol dog, and there is a certain responsibility to that. There's an SOP behind that. There's a liability behind that. There's responsibility behind that. But the canine thing it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And it has pastors, security guys out there. It has worked. It does work. It's a massive deterrent, huge deterrent.
Yeah, it's the biggest deterrent that we have.
I have seen, man, we had this, Alma, you want to say hi? Come here. Oh, she's really tired because she did a whole search today. Sit. This is Alma. This is our bomb dog. She's very lazy right now. But we had this like giant human being, this big old Samoan guy, twacked out of his mind, and he's looking at us, and he's like, I don't think you'll shoot me. And this is before we had tasers. We have tasers now, but it's before we had tasers. And I remember looking at Tim, who was my guy before I had Byron here, and just looking at Tim like, this is gonna suck. If we have to fight this guy, this is gonna, even though there's two of us,
everyone's gonna pay for this.
This is going to suck. Mm-hmm. Canine guy hits the radio. He's like, Canine up, step back. He comes up with her in her little vest. She keys in on the guy, starts doing the bark. This guy, I've never seen a giant Samoan run so fast in my entire life. This guy turned and burned so quick because he was like, they'll definitely let that dog bite me.
They will.
And he was just like, pew. Again, everybody's kind of scared of her. If they have something to be scared about, and if they don't, it's just like, that's the cutest dog ever, and we love her. And she's literally like the most popular member of our team. She's like a mascot. Yeah. But she's there to work, and she's serious, and we don't always have a handler available. And like last weekend, I thought I was gonna have a handler, and he didn't show up. And I put her in a vest and just let her kind of sit around and hang out. But I don't run her. I can't put my hands on her, and you have to educate yourself on that as well. If you get a canine, knowing what you can and can't do. For me, I've made a few mistakes where, thank God I had the control I do over her, because that was one of those, like, she could have bit the wrong person scenarios. So I have made my mistakes in that, but for the most part, it's a big force multiplier and a huge deterrent to have her around. And it's fun. It's fun having a canine around. She's just, it's a huge asset for us. Huge, massive asset. Anything we're freaked out about, we can send the canine. And we also get to work with her on our version of an HRT side as well, because she has a lot of experience doing that from her former job. And the handler knows how to do that because they know how to run that. So we get to work with her a lot, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Another thing I'd say too is when you set up your security team, but also try to have like an elder or a pastor that's like your security pastor, that's your like security ninja, pastor, elder, kind of your church response for security issues person. Because when everything's going on at the church and it's, whatever Sunday, it's just such an awesome tool to have where it's like, okay, this person's not really a security threat. Maybe they're disgruntled. Maybe they're upset. They don't want a bunch of guys circling them and like staring at them like they're a threat when they're not actually a threat, and it can like escalate the situation. When all you can do is like you see someone who's upset and is maybe starting something that could escalate into something, but probably wouldn't if you do the right thing and you say, you know what, hey man, looks like you're upset. Let me get you a pastor, and you can, have a formal conversation about this, or we can see if there's any way we can get you some help or get you what you need. It almost instantly defuses the situation. Or hey, you know what? It seems like this between me and you is not working. Let me get you a pastor, or let's bring a pastor in, and so someone else can also hear you out, and we can see if we can get your needs met. Like it's literally like you've kiboshed.
In our SOP.
Everything
the answer to almost every question is get a pastor.
Get a pastor.
Because then also you're kind of throwing the liability. You're for the staff guys out there. You're really taking a lot of that liability and decision making off of your plate.
Yeah.
It's very nice for us, and we're lucky enough here. We got some pretty good pastors around with a lot of experience and they believe in what we do, and they know our place. And also,
they have our backs.
There's all of these pastors know that, like for me, and for example, that the guy that we spoke of earlier in this service, or not this service, but in this podcast, that situation, those pastors learned really quickly that we needed, like, they knew real quick. When I walked up, I was like, I've got this. Like, I need to be the one that handles this guy now. This is out of your control.
Left the realm of ministry.
This is me now.
Yeah.
And I had to handle that guy the way that,
They do security
handle it. Yeah.
Good security work.
So it just was what it was. But when my pastor set this up for us, I told him, I said, how do I do this? Who do I turn to? Because these pastors, they don't have the experience we have. They don't have the education or the training, and they're not going to get that continuing education and training that we're going to get. Mm-hmm. And the way my boss put it to me was, you don't work for these pastors, and these pastors don't work for you. You work together. You work with these pastors, and these pastors work with you. Mm-hmm. And he made that known to the staff, like, hey, when they need to take control of a situation, let them do so. Yeah. A medical situation, we're usually the ones that handle those. They're like, oh, she's fine. Nope, we know the liability involved if you fall. If you pass out and you fall down,
you're going.
An ambulance is being called. That's just the way it is.
It's being called. Yeah.
Sorry. So they know when it's our time to take over control of a situation, but for the most part, a lot of our situations just get passed off to them. You want to jump in on that a bit?
Yeah, no, the pastor thing is great. It's a great force multiplier, and it keeps a lot of the high friction stuff out of security's lap. It makes it look like you're there to facilitate church operations in a way that kind of like gives the church an opportunity to continue with its mission. And you're trying. It's like EP. Like you're trying to let the client live their life in a way where you're disrupting the least amount of things, and you're kind of like not even there, but you're adding safety. It's like we're trying to let the church do what the church does, and we're trying to stay out of the way as possible, as out of the way as possible. Me and my all my gear, I barely even actually address things that aren't an actual safety threat. I let my volunteers who are in plain clothes and look way less threatening do it. And with this pastoral thing, it's like we lead with pastors all the time, and it lets the church make a decision on things that they're also dealing with that liability.
I will say this though, like at least for us, the tone around our campus now in regards to us being in the exposed gear that we are in now, sometimes we are the ones that people walk up to now. We're kind of We definitely play
They know
much
who
more
we
of a PR role now, and it's much more. We don't just stand there like and nobody talks to us
Yeah,
anymore.
no, we're
That's
part
not
of
the
the
way
family,
it is.
like everyone.
We're part of the family. My volunteers, I tell my volunteers, I'm like, I want you guys to be like the special forces of volunteers. Like, if parking needs help, we're gonna go help them, and we're gonna be like the best parking volunteers of all time. If the ushers need help, if guys need help, like with the money or with the offering, something like that, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it better than it's ever been done. When it's pouring rain outside and nobody wants to be outside to greet people or to see people in, we're gonna be out there doing that job. And you cannot have a volunteer team that is like, no, all I do is this. I just do security.
It's like
No,
a bad security
you're
guy
there.
who's like,
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee getter, or I can't put
Yeah,
car seats in the car. It's like, dude, you're not serious.
I don't carry bags, bro.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but the guys I've seen win do it all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Today we're popcorn poppers. Let's pop this popcorn today. You know?
Yeah, and that's the way I want to. That's the spirit I want from my
That's a
volunteers.
good That's a healthy
And,
volunteer.
Like and me as a director, I don't ask, as a leader, I don't ask my guys to do anything I'm not already doing or haven't done before
willing
or
to do,
won't do
yeah.
with them right alongside of them.
Yeah.
Like if I ask you to stand up on the roof in 110 degree weather,
Better believe
well,
I've
guess
already
what?
done
When
it.
you look down, you're going to see me and Byron right there with you in the 110 degree weather in full kit, out there the whole service, keeping eyes, staying sharp,
Not sitting down ever.
and treating,
It like an operation.
yeah.
Another thing that came to mind too is the GoPro game. That's been clutch. So
Yeah.
on my kit, I have a GoPro mounted on my shoulder, and when you're dealing with, and I know you guys out in law enforcement understand this, when you're dealing with different troubled individuals, it is very nice to be able to just beep, 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 red lights flashing, and now they know everything that's happening is being recorded. And there was another thing that I put on my kit that everyone was like, oh, we got a camera? What are you doing with the camera? What's up with the camera? And I was like, this is for my protection. I'm in Southern California. You know what I'm saying? Like, it lowers the liability for the church. It helps you take in information that becomes very pertinent. What that guy looked like. You're getting face shots. You got the fisheye recording absolutely everything, the conversation.
Yeah.
People don't act crazy when they know they're on camera as much. And if they do, they really mean it, and it's about to get really, really, like they're going all the way. It has helped quell a lot of different situations. And then, like with a GoPro, I can take a video, check, this is how it happens. Like, something happens.
This happened recently,
like
last
a couple
week.
times last
Oh
week.
no, last week the protester.
Yeah, this is how it happens. Something's going on. Beep, turn on my camera. I'm recording. We're talking. You say XYZ, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 good, bad, whatever. We get done. I upload the video straight to my phone. I send it straight to our Dropbox where we have all of our bolos and different situations and things like that. Maybe Luke's at a different campus, or maybe I just need my volunteers to get information, to take screenshots of the person's face, to give a quick, like, hey, dude down at the sign, there's a guy with a sign, bolo, this is what we need to do. If you see him, let us know if he comes on campus. And I shoot that out to the whole entire team via our group chat, and everyone's in the loop. Everyone's in the loop now. Everyone on the whole team. And then I pass it over the radio, check your group chat. I just sent bolo information, and I send a quick little sit rep on it and situation representation, a couple lines on it, and that's it. And everyone already has the same information. Now the information's gotten to the team. We still have about an hour or 45 minutes left in service, and everyone's able to be most effective with that information. And then in the after action situation, if anything happens, we can go back to that video that I recorded in high def of me and him having that conversation. When you have to kick people off of the property, you got to make sure they know that they've been kicked off the property. Having a camera running when you're telling them, sir or ma'am, I'm formally letting you know that, if you come back on this property, we will call law enforcement, and you'll be charged with trespassing and all that stuff, and you have it recorded, you're good. So having a GoPro on your kit is a huge force multiplier. I haven't done it in like an actual EP setting yet, but I have done it in the exposed setting, and it has been fantastic because I mean, in exposed work, you're dealing with people. If you're not an officer, it can be high friction. Having that camera can lessen that friction.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So
Before we end, I want to go into something you say all the time when you talk to our team, and I want you to kind of touch on it for a bit, but I don't know where it came from. I want to say I made it up, but I don't think I did. But something we always say is every Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday.
dun, dun, dun.
And we always start our meetings off by that, because a lot of guys, like, here's something that happens a lot. Something bad happens, church shooting, I think was the last one, where he's like, hey, just want to make sure we're up in security. You know, you get like an email from a pastor or something like that. The pastors that are close to us, that know what we're here doing and how we roll, they know that they don't need to make those calls, because every security protocol and procedure that we have is already in place every Sunday, no matter what.
Yeah.
We're not, like heightening, we don't have a level of heightened security. We're at heightened security at all times. And that kind of started this, like, every Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday thing, where every Sunday is could be the last game you play.
Yeah.
You never know when it's going to happen, but go into that a bit more. You're going to
Yep. I started that. That was
I still think it was me.
yeah.
Was that you?
That was me. But whatever. Anyways, so yeah, man, every Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. And it really just comes from being in the Marine Corps and being like, I could die today, and I'm getting ready to go out on a mission, and there's a dude who's been training, or maybe he's just lucky, that can kill me. And so every single day, hey, this could be my last day, make it count. So that's translated into, hey, every Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, this could be the Sunday that we have that guy try to drive over people on the patio. This could be that Sunday, but we've hardened our campus to really make it that pretty hard to do, actually.
Yeah. For free.
Yeah.
We found a concrete guy. He donated the concrete, and he built us, like, basically barriers and blockade.
Use your assets. But every Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, man. In fact, every day that you're in the private security industry is the day. You know, if you lace up your boots and you go to work, you're writing a blank check. And if you're in law enforcement, it's the same thing. If you're holding a weapon because it's part of your combat, your daily, you got a lunchbox, a packed lunch, and a gun, then you are writing a blank check. And so, really, man, that mentality of this is the day we have to show up and do our best, being every single day we strap up, that's a mentality that I say at every single one of our meetings. And it's something that everyone kind of giggles about, because then Super Bowl Sunday does eventually come around. Everyone's like trying to beat you to it. They're like, it's Super Bowl Sunday. We're like, yeah. It's great, so... Those are just a few thoughts off the top of our heads. I'm sure we'll have more, and we'll probably do another one at some point and go more in depth. 90% of the things we touched on in this podcast concerning church security can be gone much more deeply. The structures and formations in the sanctuary can be gone we can go way deeper into that. Immediate action considerations, we can go into those types of things. Naturally, always walking the fine line between what we can and can't share here, because we keep the sensitive things close to our chest. But church security it's like a new frontier. It's becoming like almost a requirement on an insurance to get better insurance premiums for churches now. So it's something that's here to stay, and I think that industry is only going to grow. So that's about all we have to share for now. Thank you so much for tuning in, and check out my Patreon account to support this podcast. And
You got a Patreon account?
dude, I got Patreoned up, man.
What do you
I
mean?
gotta support this thing. Like a month ago.
He's just taking over.
Gotta
the world
support
over
this
here.
thing, man. We're taking over the world.
Jiminy Christmas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Need
sponsors?
some marketing. Yeah, PWS. PWS is the best. Kind of rhymed, actually.
Just so
Can't wait to
jealous.
see them at SHOT Show. Can't wait to get my new PCC gun.
You're
and
getting one?
run all over with that. Look out for that. You guys know my the code 10% off Byron, and yeah, man. PWS is where it's at. Gray Man is where it's at. I have been loving.
Oh,
my
I'm
Gray
waiting
Man
for my
suit.
gray man suit right
He
now.
got one.
I
He's gonna
ordered
be happy.
one, Cost me
I need to-
so much money.
I need to
But
do-
it's totally worth it because
Yeah.
it's so good.
It
And
is.
there's a discount. I used your discount too.
Awesome.
And he gave me a bunch of. So the guy was great. I've emailed him back and forth a few times now because I've gotten kind of jacked and tan as of recent. I've lost about 20 pounds of fat, put on about 15 pounds of muscle.
No big
So
deal.
like, I get the fitting garment. It doesn't fit. I'm like, eh. It's
no.
But he's been great. I wanted to add a couple things, and because I used Byron's code, he was able to add a few little things that I
Little
wanted.
accoutrements,
Oh
huh?
yeah, the
Yeah.
little extra things you can do to the suits. Like
Nice.
he was like, yeah, I got you. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. You're Byron.
Awesome.
You used Byron's code,
That's what's
and I
up.
was like, cool.
This is what's up. Finally, you've hooked me up with so many things. I'm glad to be able to
Oh,
get
it,
up
was,
that.
it was rad.
Yeah, so that's what's up.
I have to shout out to Surefire.
Heck yeah, always.
There's just nothing else, guys. I shot a night match recently, and
I'm shooting the next one.
I was in the night. Are you?
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
I'm gonna have a baby by then, so I can't. But
Yeah.
I was shooting with a bunch of people who were using other brands that start with S. I don't want to talk smack, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Everybody's stuff was breaking down. And I was shooting with a vice president of the suppressor division, Barry Duke, and he had a whole bunch of extra Surefire lights with him. So he just starts throwing them on people's guns and handing them the handhelds. Like, oh, your handheld broke? Here, use this. Oh, use
It
this.
works.
He had to collect like 10 lights at the end of the match because all these lights broke down. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
You know, there was one guy, because this is a shooting match, it's a competition. One guy had 2 flashlights on his gun. Both flashlights broke down. And Barry puts one of the new Scout Light Surefires on there.
Yeah.
Like the 1200 lumen one, and that one light was brighter than this dude's
Drowning
2 flashlights.
stupid
Oh,
light.
so funny. Watching it just break down on the poor guys. But yeah, Surefire, it's kind of, there's really nothing else. And then,
There really isn't.
you know, Terran Tactical Innovations.
Absolutely.
I've just got the whole PCC set up. My homie Jade out there, she let me shoot her PCC at Area 2. Pistol caliber carbine, Area 2 and 9mm. And I use my pistol caliber carbine. It's my wife's gun as well. And it's her home defense gun. A 9mm PCC for a home defense gun with 16-inch barrel is pretty amazing because it's very quiet. And you can shoot it actually without ear pro.
Yeah.
And there's no big concussion. And
True
then
story.
I did some testing with Mike Pannone on some P+P ammo going through a 16-inch barrel. And we figured that the power factor was the same as a 357 Magnum. So that's a pretty awesome little home defense setup. But I shot Jade's at Area 2 and I was like, this is cheating. So I sent my MPX, my 6-hour MPX to Terran, and he did that whole package to me. I don't know everything it entails, but it's just awesome. So,
Awesome.
but yeah, and of course, 511. 511's been amazing to our church. Everything we like all of our duty shirts and pants that we wear, the strike, a lot of us wear the strike pants. They've been amazing to our church, and
Heck yeah.
they're very friendly to churches. So contact them, and a lot of their new clothes are fantastic. I'm wearing
Yeah.
their jeans right now, and these jeans are like, it's like the Lululemons of jeans. They're just like so stretchy and snuggly. They're awesome. But that's all I got, man.
Boom, that's all I got, man. So, until the next episode.
Yeah, if you guys have questions or things you want to dive into more, hit up Byron and just ask away, man, and we'll answer any questions we can, or maybe we'll collect those up and do a part 2 to this.
Yes. Check out follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of it. Find me, Byron Rodgers, Byron_Rodgers, or you can find it on the website, executiveprotectionlifestyle.com, or my website, byronrodgers.com. Until next time, y'all, I'll see you on the next video. Out. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place by teaching people how to protect themselves and the mindset behind that, the lifestyle behind that. You guys are already killing it. $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever you can do that you know you would probably just lose in the mattress anyway or spend on McDonald's. Hey, you want to put it towards something that's going to good use, put it towards a podcast, and get involved in our Patreon account at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. And if you want to find me, that's byronrodgersmotivation.com. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can to that Patreon account, because it makes all of these things possible, ladies and gentlemen. So much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for making those contributions. You guys rock. We're already doing amazing there, and it's just because of you guys. So thanks once again for those contributions. Boom. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This whole entire thing actually just started off as a Facebook group that blew up and is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, executive protection Facebook group online. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, join the Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram and check us out at executiveprotectionlifestyle.com. If you want to find me, that's byronrodgersmotivation.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as well. So until the next podcast, y'all, stay sharp out there. And as I say it, one mind, many weapons. Talk soon. Out.